Have you ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix? If so, consider sending it my way. Just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. Hi, Raven. I've been an avid listener of your channel for a while now, but this is my first time submitting my own story. I haven't experienced very many glitches before, at least not that were interesting enough to talk about, so I'm really excited to share the one that I do have. And here goes. A few months ago, I was working at a really small coffee shop drive-thru. The drive-thru was so small that they had to store all of their supplies and meeting space in a separate garage. This is a good detail to know for later in the story. It was a pretty boring job, and nothing remotely interesting ever happened there. One day they scheduled me to work in the morning and then come back for another short shift in the afternoon. I don't know why they didn't just give me one longer shift, but I decided to just let it be and left to get lunch. The lunch place was within walking distance, so I went on foot, and everything was all well and good. I didn't have anything strange on my mind at this particular time. On my way back was when things started getting really weird. I was probably 3 blocks from the coffee shop when I suddenly saw a man walking a bit ahead of me in the same direction. He seemed to have just appeared out of nowhere, and I was slightly confused by it. The walking path was just a straight shot all the way to my work, so it would be hard for anyone to show up around there without me noticing. I'm also very aware of my surroundings as a small female walking by myself. Anyways, he was wearing a button-down shirt, dress pants, and had a briefcase. He looked like a corporate person, or someone in a high position. To my surprise, he headed towards the storage garage of the coffee shop just as I was. I had plans to hang out in the garage before my shift, because it was the only area that was semi-comfortable and not cramped. As I saw him hurriedly go in, I asked myself, are they having a corporate meeting today or something? I didn't see anyone else there. If so, I should probably find somewhere else to sit so I don't interrupt them. I hesitated for a few moments, but I changed my mind and decided to go in anyway, about 30 seconds after he did. It was a public space and they could just ask me to leave if it was a problem. Here's the weirdest part of the whole experience. When I walked into the garage, the corporate-looking guy was nowhere to be found. It was just the assistant manager and the manager, both of which are women. I didn't say anything about it to them, but my mind was completely boggled, and I tried to process how the guy would have come and gone that fast. I also think the universe has a sense of humor about things, because right after I just saw this, the manager sat me down and started talking about possibly writing me up for something trivial that happened earlier that week. I apologized for any trouble that I may have caused, but I was only half listening to her, because I was really more concerned that I just saw a man vanish into thin air. I do want to add that I'm not under the influence of any drugs or alcohol. I value my sobriety a lot, and I don't have any mental illnesses that would cause me to hallucinate. I went through every possible logical explanation in my mind for where the guy could have gone so fast, but nothing adds up. The supply building only has one door, so he couldn't have gone out a back way. If he had went in and out that quickly, I would have seen him walking away, because the parking lot was so large. Also, why would he walk all the way there just to be inside for such a short moment? It just didn't make a bit of sense. Perhaps it was a time glitch, and I was seeing the projection of a person who used to work in that building at another time. Anyways, I would be happy to hear what other listeners think of this, because it's still a complete mystery to me. So, this past winter, I, 27 female, went with my mom on vacation to a very small town in the middle of a huge ecological park that consists of kilometers upon kilometers of desert. It's not the first time we've gone there on vacation. We just love how calm and quiet it is, the beautiful scenery, and the kind people who live in that town. Now, since it is a very small town, there's just one hotel with 5 rooms and 3 bathrooms. 2 of the 3 bathrooms are inside the restaurant that's attached to the hotel, and to get to them from any of the rooms, you have to pass various sets of doors. Because of this, at night, we only used the other bathroom, which was a metal door on the other side of a small patio. I remember that first day at the hotel, I went to the bathroom and when I tried to close the door, I couldn't close it fully because there was a crack on the wall the door was attached to. There had been an earthquake a few years prior, which was probably the culprit for this crack, since the last time we'd stayed at this hotel, many years ago, it wasn't there. As a result, we had to tie a string from the lock to a nail in the wall inside the bathroom in order to close it. And even then, it never fully closed. It annoyed me, but we weren't paying much and we were the only ones staying at that hotel anyways. Well, here's how the glitch happened. It was our 3rd day staying at the hotel, and we had just come back from a walk up a nearby mount. Very small, the walk barely lasted an hour. It was still fairly early night, around 10 p.m., and my mom said that she was going to get ready for bed. I told her to go ahead because I wanted to stargaze for a little while, taking advantage of the cloudless sky. I did so for about half an hour or so, before deciding it was time to also get ready for bed. I went to our room, got my toothbrush and toothpaste, and then went to the bathroom. As soon as I stepped in, everything felt off. I reached for the light switch, but it wasn't there. I searched for it to no avail. And then, when my eyes got used to the darkness, I saw that it was on the opposite wall, the one that had a crack. Except when I turned the light on, I realized there was no crack. As so, I was able to close the door perfectly, and there was no string or nail to tie it in place. It was as if it was an entirely different bathroom, but everything else was the same. The tiles on the wall, the slightly rusted mirror, the cheap-looking shower head, and the white sink with the pink soap. Everything was the same as I remembered, except for the cracked wall and the light switch. It was as if, for the time I took to wash my teeth, I was in an alternate timeline, in which the earthquake didn't happen. The wall didn't crack and the light switch wasn't moved to another wall. It was a very surreal experience, and the more I stayed there, the more nervous I became. So I hurried up, turned off the light, and pretty much sprinted towards my room. My mom was already asleep, so I decided not to bother her, but it took a while before I could sleep because I was feeling very unnerved. The next day, with the sun now illuminating everything, I went back to check on the bathroom that had scared me so much the previous night. But it was exactly as it should be, crack and all. I haven't been able to make sense of this situation despite how much I've thought about it. This happened a few months ago, but still bothers me. So, I'm a very detailed and organized person. Less is more in regards to my living space. My room is always in order, but most importantly to note, everything has a place. So, if it's not in its place, I know that it's missing. I also hate losing things, so I'm hyper aware of where my belongings are. So I have a cup on my shelf that I store pens and markers. I vetted every pen/marker before it went in there, and frankly, I don't use them that often. But I still like to know that they're all worthy of use, and that I'm not collecting junk. This is just to note that I'm familiar with what I have in there because I loathe clutter. What I also keep in there is a letter opener and a great pair of scissors that I kept from an office job many years ago. Those items I use quite often. At some point last year, the scissors went missing. Even though I do live with my family, I have my own floor and we don't really go into each other's spaces. We live more like roommates, especially in the sense that we have many of our own common items rather than communal ones, including scissors. I was annoyed and asked everyone for a while if they had seen my scissors or come into my room and took them, to which they all denied. Over the next few months, instead of just getting new scissors, I would just get really annoyed every time I needed one and went to grab them, only to be reminded that they were still missing. So, one day I go to remove one of those event bracelets from my wrist that I got from going out the night before. Out of habit, I go to get the scissors, forgetting once again that they've been missing for months. I take the letter opener instead. I know, risky. And tell myself, that's it. Just take the extra little black scissors from work that you've had at your desk for ages. I use the letter opener to remove the bracelet, put it back, and that's it. The next day, I, of course, forget to bring the scissors home from work. I work in a shared office space, so most of the supplies are communal, and those scissors hadn't crossed my line of sight that day to remind me to bring them home. When I get home, I have a ton of mail to open. So I go to get my letter opener, and when I tell you that my heart dropped into my stomach when I didn't see the letter opener, but the scissors that had been missing for months. I just stared at them in disbelief. I then asked all of my family members which one of them had randomly returned my scissors that they had all denied taking all those months ago. After the initial blatant denial to my question, I was practically begging them to tell me they returned them because I needed an explanation. But my parents and brothers said they have no idea what I'm talking about. I begged them to tell me that they were playing a joke on me, knowing they aren't the pranking type but still needing an explanation. None of them even remembered me asking about these missing scissors months ago in the first place. And truthfully, they thought I was crazy and annoying for going on and on about scissors all night. I was pretty freaked out, and my denial and confusion made me decide to take the entire contents of the cup out, even though my letter opener clearly was not there, and couldn't be missed if it was. But, let me tell you, what I then found hidden among the pens was the small black scissors from work that I never actually brought home the day prior. I basically sat on the floor for an hour trying to find a rational and logical explanation for the entire thing to help me sleep at night. It's been months, and I would like to note that my letter opener is still gone, despite searching high and low for it. And I now have 2 pairs of scissors at home. I'm curious what others think, because I still really can't conjure a complete explanation that doesn't involve me having memory loss, or my family playing a trick on me, which I also know did not happen. This happened over a year ago, but it replays fresh in my mind almost daily, because I'm trying to make sense of what I saw and experienced. My ex-boyfriend, 35, male, and I, 34, female, were strolling through the aisles of a store conversing as normal. We were choosing snacks for stay-at-home date night. As we came to the end of an aisle, I began to get a migraine and I felt a pain in my guts to the point of wanting to vomit. My boyfriend at the time began to notice me in discomfort and asked me if everything was okay. And hell no, it was not. I was standing at the end of the aisle with my hand on my head and the other on my back trying to support myself. I felt like I could feel the earth literally spinning, never mind the room. I had to steady myself because the spinning felt so real. It was like that spaceship ride at a carnival where it just spins and everyone gets stuck to the walls. I leaned my head back, and when I looked forward and to my right, I saw myself and my boyfriend in perfect mirrored form. I was standing next to myself. I saw me, staring at myself in absolute horror, with my oblivious boyfriend picking up some kind of bag of chips and standing behind me. I raised my hand, and the reflection raised its hand. I stared at myself and turned to my boyfriend in horror and said, "Do you not freaking see this?" I then looked back to find the reflection gone and went into a full-scale panic attack. I know what I saw. I'm not crazy. I stood directly next to myself as if I had a perfect clone and saw everything reflected right behind me. Time split. The universe split right in half. I can't make sense of what I saw to this day. I just know that I know nothing is what I thought it was anymore. Hey Raven, I've been listening to the podcast and have been following you on Spotify for about a year now, and I had always been quite curious about the paranormal, otherworldly, and all accompanying subjects. That being said, I'll try to keep this short. When I was 5 years old, I had a very eerie dream. I was in what looked like the inside of a closed-down diner that was pretty similar to a restaurant by the ski lodge on Mount Hood, which is about an hour-and-a-half drive from where I live in Oregon. The place looked closed for the winter season, which makes no sense as winter is the prime season for skiing, and the place is normally packed. But there was clearly no one in the place. All the lights were off, and chairs were on the tables, but there was a silhouette of a slightly portly man, and I could hear an ominous whisper. It was unintelligible. It was like it was being played off of a record player, being played at half speed and then 2x speed. But it also sounded like it was being played in reverse. It was as if my vision in this dream was moving to different points, and it kept getting closer to the man. I could see more of him, and by the end of the dream, I could make out that he was a Caucasian man wearing a red flannel shirt, blue jeans, brown work boots. He had the classic balding man who still holds on to the little bit that he has on the sides. His hair was brown, and he had a mustache with blue eyes. Forgive me, as this was a long time ago, but I'm not sure if he wanted to harm me. But before I woke up, he had found me, and my vision had returned to a regular second-person point of view. I know that I was scared when I awoke, and I wanted to tell my mom, who was helping my sister, who's 6 years older than me, get ready for school. So I walked to the bathroom where they both were, and my sister was showing my mom a sculpture she had made for art class. And my jaw dropped to the floor. Her art project was a sculpture of a man wearing a red flannel shirt, blue jeans, brown work boots, brandishing a brown mustache with a balding head and blue eyes. I asked her, as I said I'm 5 years old at this time, "How did you make the man from my dream?" She said she'd been working on her project since she got home the day before. I had not heard anything about an art project when I saw her the day before. Why would I? My sister was a brat who would tease me and treat me like a little brother. I couldn't have heard them talking about it, as my bedroom door was closed and I'm notoriously a heavy sleeper to this day. I truly have no explanation for this. Maybe a year ago, I asked my mom if she remembered the time that my sister had made a figure of a man with all those previously mentioned attributes. She says that she doesn't remember it. But how can you expect a woman raising 2 kids who she herself at the time was going through college to remember an art project from 10 years ago? I then explained to her that I had just woken up from a dream about a man who resembled the exact same thing my sister had made a figure of. I described what the man looked like and how he was dressed, and my mom said that it sounded like I was describing her dad, who passed away in a plane crash in 1995. 12 years before I was born. But I still have no idea of how I dreamed of a man resembling my grandfather, who I had never met, nor had my sister. Anyways, I just wanted to put this possible glitch out there for your audience to speculate on. Keep it up, Raven. I love the series. Well, thank you, Dominic. I quite enjoyed this story, and I will keep it up. Promise. To start, I'm from Croatia, and English is not my first language. My boyfriend and we were cleaning a building together. That day, my boyfriend left a key in the storage room keyhole until we cleaned the whole building. He was sure that he left it there, and he typically doesn't lose things nor forget where he leaves them. He's not like me. When we were done, we went back to get the key, which I also saw in the lock when I was passing by. But suddenly the key wasn't there. Both he and I were surprised that the key wasn't there, so we went to look for it in the car. We looked everywhere. The sides, the front, even where we would never leave the key. But it's nowhere to be found. When we were cleaning, the people who normally stay there, because people give them things, passed by. So my boyfriend and I immediately assumed that they may have stolen the key. Although we both knew that these people were okay, and that they probably wouldn't have done that. We just didn't have any other logical explanation. We agreed to look for them right away, because they couldn't have gone far. We started looking for them, and when we found them, my boyfriend went out to ask them if they had taken the key. And at the moment that he ran outside and started to question them, I looked down and saw the key in my hand. The key suddenly magically materialized in my hand out of nowhere. If the key were in my hand the whole time, my boyfriend would have been the first to notice. There's no way he wouldn't have noticed that. When I saw the key, I immediately ran out and told my boyfriend that the key was in my hand. We apologized to the people and had a small talk about it, and when we got back in the car, even my boyfriend, who had never heard of such things or seen such a thing, was in shock. I mean, he's never even watched or seen a single video about the paranormal. I don't know how he lives like that. The most bizarre of all is that shortly before this event, I had been talking to him about such things and things that have happened to me, but he wasn't interested. And now it happens to us, as if something wanted to show him that he had to trust me, and that such things do happen. So, this happened earlier this morning, but it's still on everyone's mind here. I was doing the laundry and moving clothes from the washing machine to dryer. While I was moving things over, I picked up my Optimus Prime shirt and put it in the dryer. Then, one of my kids needed me in the kitchen, so I walked away. When I went back to the washing machine, I picked up the next item, and it was again my Optimus Prime shirt. I figured I had just mistaken the first shirt for it, so I threw the shirt in there. A few items later, again, one of my kids needed something, so I walk away. When I get back, I again pull out the same Optimus Prime shirt from the washing machine, and I say out loud, "What the hell? This is weird." and throw it in the dryer. My oldest daughter walked in and asked what was going on, and I tell her. She looks in the dryer and she says that there's 3 of this shirt in there. It's impossible, as I only own 1. So I go look in the dryer and, yes, indeed, there are 3 identical shirts. All wet as well. My daughter gets excited and calls my wife to take a look to confirm that we are not crazy. My wife takes a look and she also sees the 3 identical shirts. And she knows that I only own 1 as she's the one who bought it for me. My wife says that we should take a picture and she walks out of the laundry room to get her phone. While she was getting her phone, there's a loud bang coming from the laundry room, and we all quickly go back in there. Nothing seemed out of place or to have fallen, but when my daughter looked in the dryer, there's only the 1 Optimus Prime shirt. We emptied the dryer, but in the end, there was only that single shirt. Still no idea what happened there, but all 3 of us saw the multiple shirts. This happened to me a couple of weeks ago, and I've been thinking about it nonstop since. My roommate and I went through the Taco Bell drive-thru, as one does. I was driving and he was the passenger. I ordered a combo meal, a quesadilla one if you're curious, which came with a medium drink. I pulled up to the window to pay and handed my card over. While the drive-thru worker was processing my payment, I moved a cup from my middle console cup holder to the cup holder that's down on the door to make room for my drink that was coming with my meal. The worker gave me my card back, and then immediately gave me my drink with a straw. I know for certain that I put it in the middle console cup holder, because I bumped my roommate when I was trying to get it to fit. We get our food and begin the short journey home. When I pulled into my driveway, my roommate stepped out of the car with the bag of food. I reached down to the cup holder to grab my drink, and it was not there. I checked every single cup holder in that car, and it was nowhere to be seen. I asked my roommate if he grabbed it, and he said that he didn't, and was also confused as to where my drink went. We both remember me getting a drink with my meal, and it was just gone. I was weirdly upset, not because I didn't have a drink, but because I felt like I was going crazy, and being gaslit by the universe. I've misplaced things like that before, but there was absolutely nowhere that it could have gone. It took me a while to calm down, but this has been in the back of my mind for the last 2 weeks, just eating at me. I can only assume that me from another dimension got a surprise Diet Pepsi that somehow slipped through a rift or something. Does anyone here have any thoughts on what might have happened? This happened to me years ago, when I was introduced to someone as Nick, the nephew of some friends. He's a vegetarian, musician, lawyer, and we had a nice chat at the gathering. I went to another person, was told, oh, that's their nephew Nick there, and it was a totally different person. At least, looks-wise. Same details, checked all the box for what I knew about Nick, yet not even close to the same dude. I said hello throughout the course of the evening, and it was clear that he had never met me. Plus, he had a very different personality. At first, Nick was a pudgy, blue-eyed, self-effacing shy guy. Second was a little arrogant, with dark brown eyes, darker skin, different hair and color/texture. Not the same guy. And there's only one nephew Nick. Let alone not 2 vegetarian lawyers who are frontmen and lead vocalists in a band. Okay, whatever. Stuff happens. And sometimes weird stuff happens. But it happened again yesterday with a different person. A woman this time. My friend's beloved aunt died in like 2017 or so. I attended the memorial, and seated next to me was a woman who introduced herself to me as Dina Saccone, a good friend of my friend's family, and mom of a fellow classmate of my friend, Kathy, and me. His name was Teddy, and he'd been my first little crush in first grade. There were only a few minutes until the memorial started, but we chatted a bit, and I introduced myself, asked about Teddy, told her to tell him hello for me, etc. I remember thinking how young she looked, barely older than Kathy or me, and of all the things, she was wearing a mini skirt at the memorial. Oh well, not a super formal family, and she looked good. Flash forward to yesterday, another memorial, this one for Kathy's mom. Dina Saccone was one of her best friends, and Kathy mentioned that Dina would of course be there. I made a mental note to say hello, since we'd had a little conversation at the aunt's memorial. I was standing looking at the beautiful and elaborate slideshow that Kathy had put together for the service. A very outgoing lady, about the age of my mom, stood next to me and was commenting on the old-timey pictures. She was a hoot. I introduced myself, and she said, "Hi, I'm Dina Saccone." But, people, this was not the same lady. This lady, A, looked nothing like the first Dina, and B, even if she'd bore any resemblance whatsoever, there is no way anyone could just normally age that much in 5 or 6 years. This was a different lady. One comment that she made that was interesting was that Kathy's Uncle Greg was very conservative, so she used to shock him by showing up in her miniskirt. What the hell? The first Dina wore one, the second Dina happened to mention one. I don't know, y'all. My high school geometry teacher would go off on these tangents about the implication of higher math, verging into philosophy, and if he got too far up in the clouds, he would just shake his head and say, I'd rather drink beer. So that, my friends, was a collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories. Good Glitch in the Matrix stories. Stories that show our simulation do be glitching out, though. It does so pretty frequently, pretty intensely, pretty consistently. It's like it hasn't been rebooted in a couple months. Someone needs to run the disk defragmentation tool on our reality. That's a good idea. That way, realities and timelines can stop being so fractured, right? They could all come back together where they're supposed to be. Does anyone remember doing that on Windows XP, like, religiously on a weekly basis? My dad used to do that. And then come to find out, like, disk fragmentation really wasn't that big of a deal, because it doesn't really speed things up, because the disk knows the partitions, the specific spots, the tags where the files are, so fragmentation was just this thing that took up a lot of time and didn't do a whole hell of a lot for the system. Good stuff. Anyways, maybe it can fix our matrix, I don't know. That said, friends, hopefully you all enjoyed this collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories this week. I know that I did, of course. And a huge thank you to everyone who submitted their story or let me use their story from Reddit. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so very much. Yeah. If you did enjoy it, please hit that thumbs up button. That'd mean a ton to me. I really appreciate it. If you're new and liked what you heard, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribble to the chibble, as we say. You can also do super thanks, join memberships, Patreon for access, other stuff, you know. Things to support the channel that are never expected, but always appreciated. Now, I told you guys a while back that I'd be having a little bit of fun with the word of the week, and we're going to do that still this week. We're going to do one more different one. But last week, I asked you lovely people to tell me a joke. And on the screen right now, and several moments prior to now, are screenshots of all the jokes that you lovely people left. Some of them good, some of them not quite as good. But here's the thing. We always appreciate a groaner of a joke. If a joke makes you go, then it was a good joke. If a joke makes you go, ha ha ha, it was a good joke. You get the point. Thank you to each and every single one of you who left your jokes in the comments section. Obviously, if you want to read them, I do recommend pausing the video and zooming in if you can to get a good look at what they all say. You know, just to kind of see them. Yeah. And again, thank you to each and every single one of you. This week, the word of the week is actually going to be a little different. Here's what we're doing. I want you, people who will be participating in the word of the week, to give me a word of the week. I know that may sound strange. Give me a suggestion for a word of the week. What I intend to do is take the words of the week that you suggest to me and use them over the next however many we get. If we get 2, I'll do it over the next 2 weeks and start back at A. If I get 20 weeks, almost half a year. If I get 5 weeks, you get the thing. If I get none, well, not tomorrow. Next week, we'll start back at A, if that makes sense. However, to count your submission, you have to put something that indicates that you're suggesting a word of the week. So put, like, my suggestion or my word and then the word, okay? Yeah. Just leave me a word you want me to use as a word of the week with something indicating it is a suggestion, and I'll show up on the next video, and it may be next week's word of the week. We'll see. That all said, friends, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you're the best you that you can be. Never let anyone tell you otherwise, and please never ever forget it. And until I see you again, my beautiful friend, much love, and sleep well.